Hello, I'm Gunilla Dobrin and I'm a method developer from Sweden. I want to tell you about prePULSE. prePULSE is a way of identifying and correcting the deficiencies that exist in the three areas: maturity development, impulse control and social skills. Let me start with a little bit about the background behind prePULSE.
They were pampered too much. I've heard this expression once too often in regards to the reason behind inappropriate social skills, and I could feel my pulse rate climbing. It was time to take a moment. Could it rather be that they have been pampered too little? I realized that there was a strong need for a better way to help children of all ages. I thought, in what way can I help these youngsters gain their missing knowledge? I wanted to make them see that one can change their behavior without losing power, and I began to develop prePULSE. I've been fortunate to have worked with children all my life, and I've always been most interested in children that find themselves left out. Children and youth who might not behave as expected will often be punished for it by parents, teachers, peers, and so on. My commitment to these children and teenagers began early in my career. I've observed them in their own environments and in schools. The children that were blamed for everything, who didn't want to go home in the evenings, who were disruptive, were sent out of classes, and didn't even want to go to school at all, and became socially isolated. For some of them, things eventually became worse. They hadn't developed the appropriate behaviors to follow and conform to society's norms and rules. Some were forced to leave their families, and they were institutionalized. What occupied my thoughts constantly was, who were their role models? Had they even given the time and guidance that is crucial to learn to work together with others? Had they received only reprimand instead of guidance? While I was studying and training to become a cognitive therapist, I had the opportunity of regular therapeutic conversation with these young people. Our talks focused on learning how to put thoughts and feelings into words, which turned out to be a common difficulty for all of them. "Everything goes black and I just don't know what I'm doing," was a common explanation for their destructive behavior. Difficulties in understanding and managing one's emotions can be frustrating and often results in projecting the frustration toward others. I noticed that many of the young people that I spoke to suffered from these difficulties, so we began to develop a box for feelings. In the box we collected words that we could use to match the feelings that they were experiencing. The box that we were using was light grey, and one day a young man that I worked with said, "I think that you should paint the box black." And I wondered, why? He answered, "I've heard that all aeroplanes have a black box where all important information is gathered." I look upon most destructive behavior as a learned behavior, and therefore that a new, more appropriate behavior can also be learned and under proper guidance to replace the destructive behavior. prePULSE developed as a close collaboration. The youth that I met in the institution became my greatest teachers. Together we developed a working materials for 10 discussions, and we made a workbook that became the basic for our work on impulse control. In order to build trust, the researcher is given all the working material after the course is finished. My approach is based on forming a scientific research team, a lead researcher, the youth, and the research assistant, the adult. The drastic improvements in the youth behavior created an awareness, and the interest in prePULSE grew. Schools, social services, and parents came forward with children who needed help. More and more people wanted to learn how to work using my method. The success of the method is well documented. It has its root in cognitive psychotherapy and mindfulness. Currently in Sweden, there are about 4,500 people educated in prePULSE, people from various professions, including teachers, social workers, and therapists, who, in their working lives, come into contact with individuals who had this type of difficulty, and more children and teenagers are now getting the help they require. Young people who have been charged with criminal acts are now given the opportunity to work with the prePULSE program. prePULSE has been in use since 1998 in Scandinavia, and the method is used by the Nicaraguan police force and also to help street children in Brazil. I want to tell you the story about the wind and the sun, which has inspired me a lot. The wind and the sun were arguing about who were the strongest. The wind felt to be the strongest because it could blow so hard that everything around could be destroyed. The sun didn't agree and said it was the one that was the strongest because it could become so hot that it could burn down everything. They decided that the winner would be the one who could get the coat of the little man down on the street. And the wind started, and the more the wind blew, the tighter the man grabbed his coat closer to his body, so eventually the wind failed to get the coat off. Then it was the sun's turn, and the more the sun shone upon the man, the warmer he became, and it was not long before he took his coat off. The question is, when is the best chance that a person chooses to change their behavior, do you think? When they meet a cold wind or a hot sun? In prePULSE, we assume that we all have basic needs that need to be met when we meet other people. If they don't, we put on our overcoat. We change the attitude, goes into defenses, and alters behavior. The fewer of our need we have met, the thicker overcoat we get. In the end, our overcoat is like an armor. prePULSE is built like a triangle, a triad consisting of thoughts, emotions, and behavior. All the corners are interrelated, so if there are problems in any of the corners, it will show itself in the behavior. It is important to know that there is only one corner that other people can see, the behavior corner. Each corner consists of an area corresponding to the biggest problem areas that were found to be common in children and adolescents. It can, of course, be less problematic areas in each corner, but I will just focus on the biggest one at the moment. I will now show how it attaches the problem areas in the triangle. At the top corner is given moral judgment, how to think and reason. I describe mature development like building a house with several floors. On the first floor, you find yourself the first few years up to about 7. Your perspective on the world is small. You are the center of the universe and everything revolves around you. Me, and again me. With the help of those who are older and hopefully a little wiser, you build the second floor. At the same time, you build a lift to the house. Now you can bring in a larger perspective, but you can also take the elevator down to the first floor and return to be a me-centered. The older you get, the more you can understand both the implications and how other people's perspective look like. When you are 18, at least in Sweden, you are considered to be mature enough to take responsibility for your own behavior. Now you should be able to bring in a social perspective and understand that it is important to have laws and rules, and how you behave can affect society. You can take the elevator up and down to the different floors whenever you feel like. If you do not receive help to build your house, or if you get stuck with a lift at a far too low floor for your age, it can cause problem both for yourself and for others. It's frustrating when you talk to someone that you expect to be on the 4th floor and you get responses from floor 1. For example, what I do affects only me. Let's move on to the emotion corner. It's about impulse control, how to handle emotions. This is what prePULSE is all about. Let's imagine that the triangle is the top of an iceberg. On the right side there is a slide, and on the left side I have made steps. In prePULSE we practice to follow the 10 steps. Difficulties with impulse control can show that you are acting directly on the emotion without thinking. If you go directly from the emotional corner to the behavior corner, your lack of impulse control. And then you have to take the difficult path uphill to get to the thoughts. You can also have too much control. That means that you climb up the stairs on the left side, but when you reach the top corner, you do not dare to go down and act. You turn around and walk back again. Finally, we watch a bit of trouble in the behavior corner. The difficulty is that the person do not know how to behave. The knowledge of social skill is missing. The most basic skill you need to learn in order to work together with others at the early age is to listen. You know that skill? Now I have shown you what the main difficulties in each corner are. In prePULSE we work with the whole triangle and practice to take the best route. This is the workbook for teenager from 12 years old that I developed together with the teenager. It is a manga, a book inspired by Japanese comics, which means that it must be read from the back to the front and the pages from right to left. All mindfulness practices in the book are made by Daniel Rechtschaffen.